Robin Leffler's first friend was a tricorder, Wesley Crusher's first friend was a warp core, and Worf made a Tarvokian pound cake. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Huss. Today we're doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation Season 5, Episode 6, The Game, story by Susan Sackett, Fred Bronson, and Brannon Braga, teleplay by Brannon Braga, directed by Corey Allen. This was October 26, 1991. Where were you? Guess what, everybody? We have a very special guest. We are super excited. We've been talking about him for 5 seasons. He is here, Mr. Wil Wheaton. How are you, Will?
I'm so happy to be here. It's really great to see you both.
It's great to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to say, first of all, thank you for pioneering this space of the young kid in space for me. You did it, and I've lived a wonderful life as a result of my experience with it, and you paved the way. And so I think, first of all, I need to just pay homage for you paving the way in the space of Star Trek and young men.
Thank you so much. I am watching Deep Space Nine. I told you this at the Picard premiere, but I'm watching Deep Space Nine for the first time. When we were kids and it was new, I had a weird sibling rivalry and my own insecurity and couldn't do it because I felt weird about it. And I'm so glad that I waited until I was an adult and mature because it's such an amazing series and all of you guys are so good. I keep feeling so retroactively envious of you. You get these wonderful scenes with Aaron. You get these incredible scenes with Avery. And I remember at a con recently, someone brought Jake Sisko up and I said, I kind of feel like Wesley Crusher crawled so that Jake could walk, so that Adira Tal on Star Trek Discovery could fly. And
wow.
There is a weird thing in me that really just explodes inside of me when I talk to you, because you're the only other person in the world who knows what I know on a cellular level in a way that can't be spoken, but we both just know because we were kids and we were there.
Thank you
for that. I don't believe I get that. I don't think I deserve that credit.
You
just showed up. But
you pioneered in that space. And because you were successful at it, they decided to do it again with me, and I did have that chance to get different kinds of storylines, to get to actually be more of a kid and watch that growth. I thought they put you more in an adult situation. When they introduced your character, it was somebody who was kind of, the captain is like, get this kid off the bridge. So it's already starts in a negative space. And so they didn't give you the opportunity, I feel like, to really flex your acting skills, which you have tremendous amount of skills. I remember watching you before I even did Star Trek on Stand By Me, one of my favorite kid movies growing up. Loved your character. So as far as your abilities, clearly they chose you because you had the intellect, the reason, the sense to communicate this futuristic version of society. I thought you did an admirable job of just expressing that intellect, being colorful, being, difficult to be young with older people around you that are all, in this Shakespeare kind of vein and classical.
You were around that too, just like I was. Did you feel intimidated the way I did? Just oh man, I don't want to mess up. I don't
want to mess up. That's exactly. Yeah. It was the whole.
I don't want to disappoint them. I don't want to let them down.
Yeah, because I knew that I was playing ball with professionals, and
100%.
Yeah, so it's it's like somebody passes you the ball. You don't want to miss that shot because you feel like all this weight is on you to just not stand out. Basically, I didn't want to be the weakest link. That's
100. Oh my God, so much. If nobody notices me because I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do, and then I can go back to my schoolroom, great. That'd be amazing.
Yes.
So you sparked 2 memories for me. One of them is David Gerald, who was a writer on the original series, was consulting on Next Gen when it was in development, and Gene wanted to put in the Wesley Crusher character. And it was David who said, I don't think this is a good idea. I don't think that having your kind of Will Robinson, gee whiz, space genius character is good. I think it's going to turn the audience off. So if you want to put this character in, you need an actor who has like some depth and like gravitas to him. What he was describing in me was that like I was just so unbelievably sad, and like I was going through so much bad stuff in my own real life that presented as seriousness and thoughtfulness and that sort of thing. And he said, I just saw this kid in Stand By Me, and I think he could probably handle this role. And he wrote that in a memo to Bob Justman, who was also helping develop. And that memo is the reason I even got an audition for the show. I've always been so grateful to David for like kind of having that belief in me at that time.
I think that stood out for all of us. Anybody who saw that, you stood out as a remarkable actor who showed range and just really delivered a A1, like award-winning type performance that stands through the ages. I mean, that movie still is one of stands on its own legs, you know.
Thanks. Yeah, we're all really lucky to all of us who were in it are really lucky. You know, some people, most actors, I think, would spend their entire careers really wanting just one thing like that, right? Or like never even getting to be in something that matters the way that did. And you know, I was just a kid. I didn't know what I was doing. I just followed Rob Reiner's direction, and like I kind of was that kid in real life, you know, that was I was. People kept telling me who I was instead of asking me who I wanted to be. And that was really hard for me. And Gordy was experiencing a lot of that too. I was the scapegoat in my family, and my brother's the golden child, and Gordy was experiencing that too. And one of the things that I learned from that movie that I carried with me through all of my work that's good, is to not think about it too much, to not get caught up in my head, and to not watch myself when I'm working, and just kind of be there. And to bring it around to the game, I watched it this morning because
Nice.
I watch, if I happen to see that Next Generation is on somewhere on television when I'm like going through the program guide, I'll watch whatever episode it happens to be, unless it's one that I'm in a lot because I get cringy and weird when I watch myself. But I watched myself in this, and I saw a couple of things that were really interesting to me. I was able to separate myself from Wesley Crusher. I was able to separate myself as a person and an actor from just his character. And I was like, this guy's really smart. Like he's figured like some stuff out. There's this scene at the beginning that I had completely forgotten about, when they bring him into the observation lounge and everyone's there and it's like a surprise and Worf's made him a cake and all that. And I was watching how overjoyed Wesley Crusher was that his family was there and excited to see him. And I was really sad that I don't remember feeling that way as a person, not because of the cast, not because that wasn't going on, but just because it was so long ago. And that was a difficult time in my life. So coming back for this episode, and getting to like be in the family again, was a really wonderful experience. And I had forgotten a lot of it. It wasn't like it was asleep in my body. Right. But after watching it today, I was like, oh man, I remember that scene, and I remember doing that stuff. And like, it was just, and the show's kind of a bottle episode too. Like it's only on the Enterprise, which is nuts. I didn't even remember it being like that. There's one other thing I wanted to say to you. Oh, it's so interesting to me that you were talking about wanting to be there to get the ball, because I heard a hockey player. I'm a massive hockey nerd, and I heard this guy talking about playing with Wayne Gretzky. And he said, look, man, he makes you better, because you do not want to be the one guy on the ice whose stick isn't there when he passes it to you, when nobody knows that pass is coming. Like, you don't want to waste that pass. That's how I felt when I worked with Patrick. Like when I worked with the other people, I felt like I was working with my very cool aunts and uncles. When I worked with Patrick, it was like I was working with like the dad figure. And like, I just did not want to mess up. And I didn't want to be like, I didn't want to bungle the pass.
And you
and
held
it made
your
me a better
own.
actor.
You held your own. You mentioned being smart. That's one thing that you sold, I think, from the beginning. I don't think anybody questioned that you were smart. That was a believable characteristic that you sold for this Crusher character. I mean, I saw that character. I saw that Jordy respected you in the engineering room. I saw that your mother respected you when it came to the medical stuff. I saw that even Data, was curious. There was a mutual exchange of curiosity between the two of you. Where
Such a
that
wonderful
scene,
scene. That
yes,
walk and talk in the corridor.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah. Something I noticed in this episode is that it's a very slow burn. Like, look, there's not a lot of story here. This is not a thick story.
right.
The original story idea, now this is apocryphal. This is the way I remember it, that Susan Sackett was Gene's executive assistant. And the way that I remember it is that she just wrote down the crew of the Enterprise gets addicted to a game. And they bought it, and Brandon wrote this script from that idea. And it moves this script and this episode, it breathes. It really takes its time. It's weirdly horny at the beginning. Like, it's odd. Troy with the ice cream, I was like, you are weirdly horny in this scene. And I remember Corey Allen, who I love, he was a wonderful director. Corey would, he seemed to direct a lot of my episodes that had a lot of weight to them. And Corey would be off stage, and he was like an actor's director. Like, whatever was going on the set, he like felt it in his body. So he's like just acting real hard with you just off camera. And I remember him like in an effort to be helpful, describing the like sexually gratifying experiences that the game is giving people, but it's creepy and weird and gross, and like it's not working. And I just remember looking at I think it was Marina, and doing this like. I remember it was like particularly graphic, like with Gates, but it wasn't in a way that would like get you called to HR. It was like, I'm trying to direct you, but it's just not landing.
You know, it's funny. When I remember this as one of the most memorable episodes of my youth when I first saw this back in the day. Hadn't seen it in so many years, and it was one of the first episodes I had seen back then. I did not catch all of that weird sexual stuff going on until this watch. When I watched it, I was like, whoa, I do not remember, like, are they orgasm? Like, this is a totally different thing than what I expected.
So that's the uncomfortable, weird direction I'm talking about. Like, he's basically describing orgasms, and it was like, it was gross. I get it. I cannot stress enough, it was not predatory and weird. It was an effort by a very old style of directing to try to like really bring emotion into the thing. And he was good at that. He did it in a lot of other episodes.
It was euphoric.
Yeah. What was the thing about Geordi? LeVar's one of my favorite people in the world. I love him so much. I admire him and I look up to him. And I was always so grateful when I got to go work in engineering with him. First of all, I loved that set. That set was it was great. There was so much to do on that set. There were as close as we got to practical set pieces, like at least we could go with, like, there are lots of fake buttons to touch in that set. I can't remember if it was my idea for Wesley to jump over the engineering pool table when he's getting chased by Riker and Worf, or if that was in the script. But I remember I really pushed directors to let me like do stuff in engineering that said, this guy hangs out here, like sliding down the ladder and like being almost casual with a lot of the things in there. Like, that's where he goes. Um, and that I was remembering watching this, being in engineering with LeVar, how I looked up to LeVar and loved LeVar and love LeVar, and wanted to make him proud in exactly the same way Wesley did. And with Data too, just walking down, doing that walk and talk. And those were always so much fun to do. And remembering Brent was just so funny and so easy to work with, and was one of those people who, like, at that time in my life, I felt like every person I interacted with, I was auditioning, like, please like me. And I always felt like Brent just accepted me exactly as the kind of like the weird guy that I was. And that seed, I can see I remember, sorry, I remember how much fun it was. And I love that they were doing that Data, like just trying on human emotions and trying to fake them. And
that laugh,
when we would rehearse those, and Brent would just try different things, different ways of like being Data, trying to be human, and kind of like not quite landing. Oh, it was so much fun.
I kind of wish this story. I'm sorry.
So, like, on your show, like, did you, you have these amazing scenes with Avery, and I'm so envious that you guys got to have father and son scenes. Because Gates and I didn't get to have a lot of mother and son scenes, and we loved them when we got them. But did you have a similar style of kind of like relationships with the different cast members? Like they filled kind of different, like, well, let's say family archetypes, kind of the way that they did for me. Did you get that?
100%, absolutely. So obviously Avery's going to be my dad, so that was naturally already a given. But everybody else kind of did fill this, either like an enforcer type person that I was a little bit more fearful of, right?
Yeah, right. I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about. I was scared of him too.
And then there's the other kind of more like uncle type characters that were more interested in the day-to-days of my life to some degree, and had a more of a personal relationship with me. So, but all of it in the end still felt like I'm like a fish out of water to some degree because of the age difference there.
Same.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to have the same side conversations.
I wish that we'd had like cousins, like that there would be younger people, or like, if you and I had overlapped by probably another year, right?
It would have made sense.
Maybe I would have crossed the street more than I did.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I thought Ashley Judd character brought out a side of you as well that I wanted to see explored more. I thought that was perfect. Why didn't they have this kind of, love interest for your character already going on before? That made sense to me, and it felt right.
Mm-hmm.
Was she somebody that you were involved with in casting, or you just show up on the set and you see that it's Ashley Judd?
So when this episode came around, I was not on the show full time anymore. I'd been off for a year, and I cannot remember if I was filming. This is 1991, so I was probably filming Toy Soldiers when we did this episode, or it was right around that time. I can't remember for sure. And what I remember is, that the agent calls and says they're checking availability, they want you to come back. And I was like, I love that. Yes, just tell me when to show up. At some point, there was talk, Ashley Judd. What I remember about that time is that in 1991, she wasn't Ashley Judd. Mm-hmm. She was Winona Judd's sister, or Naomi Judd's sister.
Yeah.
And I remember there being like there was weird energy around that. Like, I felt like this young woman was having this opportunity to establish herself on her own, as separate from like her family name and all of that. And I was too young and too immature to even be aware of if that was a struggle for her or not. I remember that she was extremely kind, easy to work with, but also very private and reserved. And like, we didn't like hang out. But when we were on set together, we had a really nice time. I understand that she doesn't like to talk about it. Like she doesn't like to be associated with Star Trek, which I don't get. I don't know why that is. She's absolutely entitled to that. But I think she's lovely in this role. I think the character's really well drawn. I thought that their relationship, in 41 minutes or whatever, was very believable and very sweet
and very fun.
Really fun.
Playful.
So I recall Corey Allen overdoing it on directing with us to where I was like, dude, you're cock blocking me. Will you settle down? I was like, you've gone from wingman to like annoying dog who won't stop sniffing my legs. Settle down, pal. And so some of those scenes, I remember that I felt uncomfortable, but not because of her. But to your point, Cirroc, yes. Having him experience and explore. You want to get together after work, right? It's another thing that I love about Jake. And I thought they learned, man. They learned from the mistakes they made with me. They learned to let Jake be a kid and then juxtapose. I'm a kid, and I just recently watched like Jake and Benjamin are like going off on a shuttlecraft to go do a cool thing together. I don't remember what it is.
Explorers, right?
It's like some go sideways.
That's
when
my
you're out
favorite
there.
Deep Space Nine episode because it's a father and son adventure together.
Oh my God. I watched it and I was tearing up just because I was like, oh, I can only imagine. Like Patrick and I did a thing where we were in a shuttlecraft together. And it was like 2 days of us just in the shuttlecraft. And it was like a master class of acting with Patrick Stewart, where you get to keep, okay, because I'm going to go try out what I just learned. And that but also that sense of like, I just felt like I'm with somebody who is special to me. And this time is special. And I only got to do it once. And I was so envious watching you get to do that. And it just it's part of what goes into my calculus of like Wesley crawled and Jake walked. I just see that and think, God, that's so great. It was wonderful to see that. And that's what happens a lot in this episode. There's just that slow breathing walk and talk.
There is.
A lot, they put so much story into modern serialized storytelling, and we don't have the filler episodes. We don't have the bottle episodes. We don't have episodes where people just talk about things. Like that scene with Riker and Troy at the beginning of this episode, if you were making it today, that scene was like 2.5 pages. It would maybe be a quarter of a page today, right? He would like walk up to her and be like, I don't know, that's just not as good as you think it is. Come play this sexy game with me. And that was it, right? And then and we wouldn't get that moment where you see character develop. And I just see a lot of that in this episode.
It worked super well. And I enjoyed that kind of back and forth scene with Picard in his office too, where you talk about Boothby and you talk about, I mean, that felt like a good moment between you. And the welcome that you got was excellent as well. But I wanted to ask you mentioned not being there for the year. The leave from Star Trek was an amicable leave. Was it something like, I have movie offers here going and I need to go and do that?
So I will truncate this story. It's on the internet in places, and it's in my memoir, Still Just a Geek, available wherever you buy books and audiobooks.
Still Just a Geek. Got it.
Yes.
So this would have been, I want to say, the beginning of the 4th season. I can't remember precisely the dates, but I had been cast by Milos Forman to work in a movie called Valmont, and they wanted me to go to Paris to work on the movie. It was the movie that was going to bring my film career back to life. My film career had stalled after Stand By Me. My parents sold me out, made me do this horrific garbage horror movie where my sister and I were physically and emotionally abused on the set. They got a ton of money for it, but it ended my film career. after Stand By Me, River Phoenix did Mosquito Coast and like got and Running on Empty and things like that. And I just did movies that nobody cared about. But I did do Star Trek, which obviously still really matters to people. So when I was working on the show, I really wanted to do both. I wanted to do films during the hiatus and just do work on Star Trek during the year. So I had this offer to do the movie, and the production schedule would have required me to miss one episode of Next Generation. And that year, we were filming out of order. So we were shooting, we'll say, just for the sake of numbers, we were shooting like, we were going to do like episode 402 first, and then we would do 401 the next week. And my team talked to production, I guess, and it was Rick Berman who said, we can't let you out of that episode. It's a Wesley episode. And like, we can't shoot around you. And presumably my agents tried to make things work, and we couldn't make it work. And he was like, look, we can't do it. I remember this clearly. I am personally writing this stuff with you and Gates that's really important. It's going to move your relationship forward. And I was like, oh, okay. And then a few days before production was to begin on that episode, I was written out of it completely.
Oof.
And it felt to me at the time like it was a choice and it was a message. And I was hurt and I was angry, and I felt controlled and I felt betrayed. And I was so angry at that time. I love my Star Trek cast, and I love that I was Wesley Crusher, and I love Star Trek, and I love what it means to my life. And all of that is true. And Stand By Me is a wonderful movie that I'm really good in. That is true as well. But I never wanted to be an actor. I did all of this stuff because my mom made me. So by the time I was like 16, 17 years old, and kind of figuring out like, oh no, I don't really like this. I don't really know what I'm doing with the rest of my life. Okay, well, if I do this film, maybe it'll help the film career, because I know the TV show's not going to go on forever. When that happened, I was so furious because it just felt like unnecessary. It felt cruel and controlling. And I said to my agent, I quit. I don't want to be on this anymore. I don't want to be part of this, and it wasn't really entirely about Star Trek. It was more about like, I don't want to be in any of this at all. I want to be a person. I want my family to see me as their kid, not as their source of income. And so when I had been off the show for about a year at that point, and I really missed my cast, and I felt like I had, I'd made a really emotional, really angry decision that I couldn't take back. And when they said, come back and do this, I was like, yeah, I would love that. I'd love to come back and do more and do it again. And it was wonderful. And everybody there, I got the same welcome back that Wesley Crusher got back, from everybody, from the crew, from everybody else like that. When I've written about this and I've spent a lot of time thinking about it and talking about it, I'm so grateful for the time that I spent on Star Trek, and I'm grateful to be part of Star Trek. As I've said to you, like, we're a big, giant, weird family, and we show up for each other, and that really matters to me. It means something to me as I start to get into elder territory in the Star Trek world. Like, maybe I can bring a little bit of that energy and that vibe to all of the shows, like, let's remember to be here for each other. We all helped carry this torch a little bit over time. When I got to go back and be there again, I was aware of what it brought to my life, and what the relationships with the actors brought to my life, that I just hadn't really been aware of, because it was sort of masked by a lot of the pain that I was experiencing at the time. I wouldn't change anything, because I love my life where it is now. And, like, there's an episode called Tapestry that's all about this.
Totally.
But it was cool to come back. It was cool to come back. And I remember being in the makeup chair, and how excited Mike Westmore was to put my sideburns on me. Like, I'm gonna do something.
Oh, good old Mike Westmore.
Yeah,
Love that
3 minutes worth of sideburn application.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
a lot of people don't talk about it, but there's a lot of hurdles to overcome as a young actor in the business. And when you start to get success, you get exposed to a lot of things that could ruin your life or end your life potentially. And so I want to say that I also want to congratulate you for surviving all of that trauma,
Oh, thank you.
for staying positive, for keeping that positivity for us. Really, you're holding it together for the rest of us who love you, and you also resonate a positive energy. So you're not trying to hurt anybody with the trauma that you've been through. You're actually trying to teach people and be there for others. And I just want to say, surviving that is very difficult. I know a lot of friends who were actors that are not here today because they couldn't make it through all the hurdles. And so I commend you for that alone, surviving, thriving, staying
Thanks.
focused. But I also want to talk about some of the new work you're doing with the audiobooks. Because you're really killing it in that space. You just finished doing the Bill Gates memoir. I want to,
That's
talk
awesome.
about that. Yeah.
It's crazy, man. A couple of years ago, he wrote a book about like just by coincidence about preventing pandemics, and it came out during lockdown. And I was asked. They came to me. Bill Gates Incorporated came to me and said, "Would you please narrate this book?" It's like, absolutely.
What?
And then he did another one that is about the climate crisis, and they asked me to do that one. And I remember saying as a joke to my wife, "Yeah, one of these days I'm going to play Bill Gates." It's like, that's never going to happen. I got a call. Would you narrate his memoir? It's like, what? Like, I'm going to literally be his voice? Okay. It was really fun. Now, what I suspect happened is that Bill Gates was, Bill Gatesing and doing whatever he does. And someone came to him and was like, okay, so here's a list of 1,000 things we got to get through today. And they start going through the list and he's like, yes, no, no, bagels, no, yes. And then they get to, okay, so someone's got to narrate your audiobooks. And we're thinking that we want to use this guy. He did Ready Player One. And Bill Gates went, oh, Ready Player One. I know what that is. Sure, we'll approve him. Like, he has no idea who I am. There's no way. There's just no way that Bill Gates knows. But it's fun to pretend that he does.
I think there's a good chance Bill Gates watched Star Trek.
I would say
there's a very okay. So that's true, which makes it even more remarkable because he's the right age to be one of those guys who was like, "Nah, Wesley, boo!" Right?
Right.
But his story is really fascinating, and it's just about him being a kid and founding Microsoft. That's what this entire story is about. And when I sat down to record this, I have the experience of narrating my own memoir. And when I narrated my memoir, I made a choice as an actor. You always have to know who you're talking to. You have to know why you're talking to them, like kind of what you want from them when you're done telling them whatever it is you're doing. So when I did my autobiography, I just thought, okay, so I'm going to do this like we're just sitting here, right? And I'm just telling you my story, and we're going through it. And there's like some asides and things like that, and then I'm coming back to it. And I had that point of view through all of it. When I started work on Source Code, which is the title of his memoir, I had a conversation with Gabrielle DeCure, my director. She directed me in Still Just a Geek, and is a terrific creative partner for me. Like, we do really great work together. And we talked about it. There needs to be a very reflective quality to this, right? Like, this is a man who's like in his 70s and is kind of going through these things that he remembers, and a little bit of it is confessional, and a little bit of it is like struggling to dig those memories up. And what I ended up doing was treating it as a performance. I am portraying Bill Gates. I am the character of Bill Gates in this story, and I think it's the best work I've ever done. it's so easy for a memoir that's not your own to become dry and clinical and feel like documentary narration. And I didn't want this to be that way. I really wanted it to feel like you're sitting with him while he tells you his story. And I felt that a compelling story deserved a compelling narrator who really cared about what was going on and had a clear point of view about it. And somehow it elevated my work.
What was the
beautiful.
key component of his character that you wanted to hone in on in order to get his voice or his spirit?
He's the smartest guy in the room. Every time he goes into a room, he's the smartest guy in the room from his point of view. And there is a point where after he's gone, listen, does everybody know I'm the smartest guy in the room? This is when he's a kid. Look, does everybody get that? Okay, you all get that. You're not accepting that I'm the smartest guy in the room. I just don't have time for you. And like that's kind of like what he does. And he has these things that he wants to accomplish. He's got these tasks that are really important to him. And he talks about how he feels he would be diagnosed on the spectrum somewhere if he were a kid today. And I agree with that, having played him in this book. and I have people in my life and people that I'm close to who are on the spectrum, and I just thought, oh, I see a little bit of so and so in this, and I see a little bit of them in that, and we as actors drew on those experiences to like literally give him a voice. But the big thing for me in that I remember throughout all of it is if I approach this as Bill Gates, the billionaire, who is a larger than life figure, who is inscrutable and unreachable, the audience isn't going to feel any intimacy in this at all. And a biography, a memoir, autobiography really needs to feel intimate.
Personal.
Yeah, very personal. So I was just like, okay, there's a sense of gratitude in this book. There's a sense of gratitude to his parents and his sister and his partners and his friends. And I thought, okay, so I have everything I ever wanted. Now I'm looking out at the world going, well, what can I do with unimaginable wealth? What can I do to like make a mark somewhere? Okay. I'm just going to be so grateful that there's a person here that I can talk to about this. All right, cool. You're a person who understands me. And I just thought maybe from his point of view, he's wanted to be understood his whole life. Right. And people always see him and they just see someone who's smart and aloof and so far in like intellectually reserved, like 5 steps behind everything, that he's kind of like an alien and he just wants to tell his story his way. Well, that was me when I started my blog. Everyone thought they knew me because of a character I had played on television and a character I'd played in a movie, and I was neither of those things. And I just remembered that. Okay, I just want to make sure. I just want to be really clear. And I also just love that you're letting me tell you this story. And I approached it like that. And I felt it, when he talks about losses. I did acting work. I imagined own losses that I've had in my life and imagined what it must have felt like for him. And when he had successes, I thought about those times when things got like, I don't know. One of the biggest successes in my life was getting on the New York Times bestseller list. One of the greatest days of my life when my stepson asked me to adopt him. And I remembered those moments and just used the emotional sense memories and put them into the performance.
Wow, that's beautiful.
It just felt great. And then what I learned from that, and I don't know how to describe it. It's just, there's a moment in like athletics where, oh my God, now I get how to swing this bat. I can't tell you what it is. I just know my whole body's finally working together. And like, I'm putting it in play more than I'm not. And that happened to me with audiobooks. I was fine. I was hitting for average, whatever. But like, this has actually let me hit it out of the yard every now and then. Like I finally just had this feeling, and I think it reveals itself. The thing that I learned that I can't describe, it happened in this performance, and it happens in John Scalzi's book When the Moon Hits Your Eye, which I think comes out in March, and Cory Doctorow's Picks and Shovels, which comes out around the same time. I did these 3 books back to back to back.
I was just going to ask you about that. I'm glad you brought those up. Yeah, because we're out of time here. But before we go, can you just tell us a tiny bit about those?
Yeah, Picks and Shovels is the third book in a series Corey has written about a character called Marty Hench, who is a guy who's been in Silicon Valley from day one. And he's a forensic accountant who kind of solves crimes. And because Corey is just like a copy fighter and a free speech advocate, like a real one, not the fake fascist kind, but like a legitimate, like defender of freedom and stuff. All of his books have an air of polemic to them that are warnings about things, that are examinations of the way power exploits workers. And Marty Hench is like a champion of these things. And the thing I love about these, I've done 3 of them now. One of the reasons I really love working in audio, and I'm pretty much done working on camera, I've gotten to play Marty Hench across 5 decades of his life. So I get to play him as a young man who's just getting started in his career, and then across the books, I play him as he gets older and older. And we've done it out of order. I actually started with the last book first, and it was just really fun and satisfying to get to play this character who's real different. I would never get to play a character that ages 50 years. I just can't do it. And then John's book, When the Moon Hits Your Eye, is freaking hilarious. It is in the same vein as Starter Villain and Kaiju Preservation Society in that it's humorous and wry, and to quote John, a real fun pop song of a short novel. And it is about what happens when one day, for reasons that no one can fully understand, the moon turns into actual cheese. And the story takes place all over the planet with all these different people in all these different careers and like social standings and educations and stories of their own. It's how all these different people all over the world react to that. So I got to play like 40 different characters and locations and responses to the same event. Was really fun. I have a personal project that I hope will be announceable real soon that I've talked about as audiobook adjacent.
That's exciting.
I'm going to do a business and promote myself. I'm at wilwheaton.net. And it is where I would ask anyone who cares to just go. There's a mailing list there, and I publish all the cool stuff that I do at my website when I do it.
Wow.
Sweet.
Okay, everybody, you have your marching orders. Yes, wilwheaton.net. Remember, social media, it constricts what you see. Everything restricts what you see. But if you go to wilwheaton.net and sign up for the newsletter, that information is going to be emailed directly to you, nobody in between. Wil, this has been so awesome. We've been talking about you for years. We really appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for asking me. Cirroc, I would love to go get some coffee privately and talk about being kids in the Star Trek universe.
Absolutely.
I feel like we have a lot to talk about that we don't even know what it is. But I feel like there's some camaraderie that we have that we don't know we have. And I would just love to participate in that.
Interestingly enough, I have felt connected to you even before meeting you. I mean, I don't know how many times your name has come up to me, just because of our similarities in roles on a Star Trek show. And so always Wil Wheaton. And so before we had finally met at that premiere, I felt like I already knew you guys. But now that I'm watching this show, I even know you more. And like I said, you've done an amazing job on the show. You overcame a lot. I know how difficult it is when you are a child actor, growing up trying to audition, and especially when it's not something that's truly what you want to do. So kudos to you for just giving us amazing work to always be able to cherish. I know you're kind of moving to the audio space now, and I hope that you are, trailblazing in that space as well. But thank you so much for paving the way for Jake Sisko to have a chance to explore his own part of the galaxy. So thank you.
Dude, it's like, honestly, it's such an honor and it's such a privilege. If I'd known that I was doing it, I probably would have tried harder. Would have tried to do more.
You did a great job, man. We'll come back next time and talk about wardrobe, because I do have a whole set of questions just on your wardrobe.
Much,
we got to exchange wardrobe notes next time, okay?
Yeah.
Awesome.
But for now, amazing performance in this. Love the chemistry. Love seeing you back.
Thank you.
And one thing Star Trek does get right sometimes is paying homage and bringing people back to get some light. They did that with Denise Crosby and Tasha Yar, and they right their wrongs sometimes. When they make a mistake, they actually say, "Hey, let's get it right." And I think they got it right with this episode. So thanks again, Will.
Thank you. If you want me to come back for, I think I have one more left before the series wraps up. You know where to find me. I'd be happy to do it.
The first duty.
The first duty.
That's a big one. All right. Stick around, everybody. We're going to talk more about this episode. Remember, wilwheaton.net. Do it. Sign up for the newsletter. That's the key. That's the most important thing. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule.